Hello, my dear friends. Hello, my dear friends. Best greetings. Best greetings. Best greetings, my friends. Today I start this video stream which is devoted to Japanese haiku or Japanese hokku. For people who is from Japan, it's very similar. It's very easy to understand, but for non-Japanese, I repeat the explanation what does mean haiku. Haiku this is a short form of Japanese poetry, actually in 3 phrases, and it's typically characterized by 3 qualities. First of all, this is essence of haiku is a cutting. This is often represented by juxtaposition of 2 images of ideas and connection between them. And second, this is traditional haiku often consists of 17 on or syllables in 3 phrases. And number 3, this is a kigo or seasonal reference, usually drawn in a sajiki. This is special form, extensive but defended list of special items, seasonal items. And actually, of course, modern Japanese haiku, they're increasingly more different and vary from traditional or 17 syllables or especially taking nature as in their subject. But nevertheless, despite a Western influence, this use of a juxtaposition continues to be honored in both traditional and modern haiku. And actually, previously, haiku was called Hokku, and this name was given by Japanese writer Masaoka Shiki at the end of the 19th century. Well, but today I'm very pleased to read very special article which was printed in American Entomologist journal in 2000, and it's devoted to Japanese haiku. Well, the name of this article is like the title of my speech today, Poetic Entomology, Insects in Japanese Haiku. So that's why I just start to read and maybe with some comments about this article. So let's go forward. Insects in Japanese Haiku by R.R.Dunn. I recently was told a story about my 2-year-old cousin Ryan following ants down the steps of his house, through the lawn, and back to their colony. He watched ants and offered them sugar because they were hungry. I'm willing to bet, if allowed, he would have soon, with a stick in his finger, tried to look inside this world. I suspect for most of us, it was an experience like these early travels down and trails of small lives that led to the science and to our questions of how and why. From the same encounters, there is, however, another direction of study. Although we busily count antennal segments with microscope, the poets with words can bring a moment's smallest details into the focus, and Japanese haiku poets in particular, they seem to have a special and lasting fondness for insects. In literally thousands of haiku or poems, we can find glimpses of insects illuminated by the careful observations of these poets. Japan has 4 great forefathers of haiku. These are Matsuo Busho, 1644-1684, Yosabuson, 1716-1783, Kobayashi Issa, 1762-1826, and Shiki, 1867-1902. All of them wrote different haiku about insects. Most of the insect poems of Basho, Buson, or Shiki were about culturally significant singing insects. Cicadas, crickets, grasshoppers, and fireflies, singing with their light, actually, as well as the showy butterflies and dragonflies. For example, the haiku, of course translated in English by Richard Haas. Butterfly sleeping on the temple bell by Buson. Stillness of the cicada cry drills into the rock, Basho. The dragonfly cannot quite land on the blade of a grass, Basho. These poems were translated by Richard Haas. Another haiku. Autumn come, cicada husk, crackling. This is by Shiki. Kobayashi Issa. Those pen name Issa actually means cup of tea. Also wrote about 3 revered insects. For example, the haiku. Autumn cicada, flat on his back, crisps his last sun. Grasshopper's son in moonlight, someone's survived the flood. In the altar of a chief place, cries a cricket. This is haiku by Issa, translated by Strick. In addition, however, Issa also wrote about many other types of arthropods, especially those without voice, in life or in poetry. In doing so, he infused the bestiary of Japanese haiku with new lives. For example, the haiku. Even with insects, some can sing, some cannot. By Issa, translated by Haas. Poet Issa was as happy to discover these creatures hanging in the dark corners of his bedroom as in a natural setting more typical of haiku. For example, the haiku. Don't worry, spiders. I keep house casually. Or another one. Insects on the boat, floating down the river, still singing. By Issa, both translated by Haas. We can picture the insects in the latter poem on a branch, or other minds are quick to imagine what might be lying in a downstream. We as entomologists first might want to identify these insects to hypothesize about their destination. Poet Issa lured these animals into his cages of language to be watched. Each of them is frozen here within the poems, specimens collected in the alcohol of words. Although this haiku was written over 160 years ago, we can still hear the insects' songs. As we read this poem again and again, we attach meaning to this drift and hopeful, singing as much the same way Issa did on some summer days long time ago. Poet Kobayashi Issa wandered the countryside for much of his life, traveling from town to town, writing thousands of poems. In this peregrination, he composed over 500 haiku poems about arthropods alone. 150 of these haiku were about flies, and there were dozens of poems about fleas and mosquitoes, underappreciated vertebrates, much as mice and sparrows also were among his favorite subjects. Kobayashi Issa published his haiku along with his haibun, a combination of haiku and prose, in a number of his books, two of which, the book The Year of My Life and the book Journal of My Father's Last Days. These books were translated actually in English since his death. For example, these are haiku by Issa. In my house, mice and fireflies get alone. Shush! Cicada old whiskers is about. Another. Swarms of mosquitoes, but without them it's a little lonely. These are poems haiku by Issa, translated by Strick. In Kobayashi Issa writings, there is a compassion and humor uncommon in the world of his peers. In the third poem above, Issa is painfully grateful for the presence of mosquitoes. He admires that while not always pleasant, they are welcome, miserably loved. For him, these funny animals are as individually complex as they are wonderful. From moment to moment, Issa finds in these small creatures empathetic souls, companions, and even small worshippers. For example, the haiku. This stupid world, skinny mosquitoes, skinny fleas, skinny children, translated by Haas. Another haiku. Mosquito larvae dancing in a Buddhist chant in a water by the grave. Crescent moon enriching new mosquitoes. Issa, translated also by Strick. Despite his slightly unorthodox subject matter and style, most of poems that Issa wrote the traditional haiku form. For example, another haiku. The flies in the temple imitate the hands of a people with prayer beards. Issa, translated by Haas. In the above, one of Issa's most famous poems, the original Japanese version of a haiku contains the traditional number of Japanese syllables, 17 syllables, 5-syllable unit followed by 7-syllable unit, and then another 5 syllables unit. In the original Japanese, this poem, like most haiku, also contains a kireji, or cutting word. Cutting words are usually found in the end of a first 5 syllables unit or after 7 syllables unit. The cutting word indicates both a pause, and a turn in subject. In English translation of haiku, punctuation, in this case of comma, often is substituted for the current word. In many haiku, tensions is created between the subjects before and after cutting word. It is from the tension that the meaning of a haiku emerges. The two aspects of poem develop a special significance relative to each another, which led the reader from a concrete image to a more profound abstraction. In the above poem, the smallness of a fleas and their movement are set against the seriousness, the holiness, and the praying of people. In many of Issa's poems, a religious scene forms the backdrop for everyday event. Without using the explicit metaphor, Issa compares the flies to the praying people, praying monks. By placing these images side by side, he humorously elevates the insects by comparing them to something religious and pokes fun at the religious figures by comparing them to insects. In these many early Japanese poems, poet Kobayashi Issa was a Buddhist monk, but a more liberal sect than Basho or many of his contemporaries. This more liberal attitude towards the religion, combines with his hard life, may account for the playful tone towards religion we find in some of his poems. For example, the poem Haiku. Don't kill that fly. Look, it's wringing his hands, wringing its feet. By Issa, translated by Haas. In the above haiku, Kobayashi Issa suggests that because the flies wringing their hand and feet pray, they are holy, and because they pray in 2 hands and 4 feet, they are more holy than we are. As we read, the second 2 lines were made to re-examine the first in a new way. In the haiku, a grasshopper with his foot upon the temple bell, by Issa, translated by Haas. In his grasshopper poem, Issa again plays the smallness of an insect against the religious symbol, the temple bell. Here, the grasshopper foot is immensely light and ephemeral against the large dark bell. As we read the poem, the grasshopper seems to become even lighter. The dramatic turn between the grasshopper and the temple bell makes us think about our own lightness, our ephemeral bodies set against the bell of our universe. For the Japanese reader, this sense would be amplified because the presence of a grasshopper indicates it was an autumn, the fall of a year, the fading of lives. In poems of haiku, insects like grasshopper are often seasonal words. Traditionally, every haiku contains a seasonal word or kigo. These words could be direct reference to the season, such as spring or autumn, or words that amplified a season, such as animals, plants, constellations, or daily events associated with a particular time of year. These words allow the reader to know much more about this setting than the poem literally says. During his lifetime, there were books listing appropriate season words. We know the following poems play in the fall because of insects can contain. For example, the haiku. Crickets chirping in a scarecrow belly, translated by Haas. Another. Silkworm spilling a cocoon in Buddha's lap, translated by Strick. Autumn cicada, flat on his back, chirps his last song, by Issa, translated by Strick. In addition to the insect names, the presence of word scarecrow indicates the first poem take place in a fall, or as obviously does the word autumn in the third poem. For Japanese reader familiar with the local natural history and literal history, these seasonal words contain symbolism and cultural importance which can be lost in translation. For example, there is a special table words of some of the invertebrate season words and the season. For example, what about seasonal words? For example, invertebrate names. In a spring, of course, these are horseflies, butterflies, snails. In the summer, fleas, flies, mosquitoes, bush mosquitoes, column of mosquitoes, summer butterfly, firefly, huge firefly, ants, mountain ants, winged ants, cicadas, pine cicada, spider, pregnant spider, slug, moth, tiger moth, mosquito larvae, water beetle, caterpillar. This about summer. What is about autumn? In autumn there are catching dragonflies with a pole, praying mantis, clear-toned cicada, katydid, grasshopper, crickets, shadflies, bagworms, insect cry, silkworm. What is about winter? Goldbug. These are cited from Haiku Handbook written by Higginson in 1985. Most early haiku strove to capture a moment or its season with complete objectivity. For example, in poems by Basho, Buson, and Shiki, at the beginning of this article as I read. Poems of Kobayashi Issa, however, are often relatively subjective. We see Issa world through Issa's eyes, and in some poems, he even addresses explicitly his relationship with what he is observing. In the poem below, Issa wishes to allow the flies with their happy wildness, but he can only to do it by living. The haiku. I'm going out Flies, so relax, make love, by Issa, translated by Haas. There is a playful tone in this poem, but Issa returns to a subject more seriously in another haiku. Walking through the forest, the insects quiet as we pass. As we bend to the to watch ants, they flee our breath. Similarly, for Issa, even in his own house, the flies seem disturbed by his presence. It is they, after all, who have unwittingly loaned us their space. For example, this is haiku. Borrowing my house from insects, I slept. First firefly, why turns away? It's Issa. A poor quarters, flies, fleas, mosquitos, live forever. Haiku by Issa, translated by Strick. As it has been said that poet Kobayashi Issa was drawn to flies, fleas, mosquitoes out of sympathy for their plight as fallen pests. His life was plagued by tragedy after tragedy, and in some poems he certainly finds tragedy and sadness in these animals' lives. For example, haiku. For you, fleas too. The nights must be lone. They must be lonely. Haiku by Issa. Another one. Earthworm pops up hard, oh, quick, the ants. Translated by Strick. Another one. Don't weep, insects. Lovers, stars themselves must part. Haiku by Issa. Translated by Strick. In their best, though, Kobayashi Issa poems reveal to us what my young cousin, small child, found in his moans of ants. A wonder and respect for these animals. Wonder and respect that made them worthy of any gift they could be given. For example, the haiku. Come flies, have some rice. May you too enjoy a rich harvest. Haiku by Issa. Translated by Yuasa. When Issa's poems rediscover the awe of a dragonfly sizing up Mount Fuji, and in the poem Hard and Kidnap, or as the butterfly sleeps off with another, he is not just experiencing these moments, he is offering them to us with his pen. The poet strokes the ember of a wonder, like spot fires in the fields of everyday life. So let us fan these fires, because as Edward Abbey wrote in the Journey Home, any scientist must be something of poet, must possess the ability to communicate to the rest of us his sense of love and wonder at what his work discovers. This is a story about Japanese haiku. This is a story about insects in Japanese haiku or Hokku, and about poetic entomology, which was written by R.R.Dunn. I was very pleased to read it, for you, my audience, and for English-speaking audience, and for Japanese-speaking audience. This is my presentation and my gift, my public gift for this entomological and poetic literal community. Thank you very much for your attention. Looking forward to see you on my channel, and write your comments and write your questions and offer your suggestions about new subjects which I can present either on online translation or stream or in my special recording of another lectures, maybe readings and communications with my audience. Thank you very much for your attention. Looking forward to see you as my subscriber on my channel. So press like and write your comments. Bye bye. See you soon on my channel. Bye bye.